A recent study has been quoted saying that long-term intermittent fasting is dangerous and may increase our risk of heart disease death by 91%. Uh-oh, I've been intermittent fasting for a few years now. Should I be worried? Today, we're going to look at this study, what's being said about it, and I'll share if I'm going to continue with intermittent fasting. A few of my family and friends have sent me links to articles about the risks of intermittent fasting and cardiovascular disease in the past couple of months, and the headlines are very scary. 8-hour time-restricted eating linked to a 91% higher risk of cardiovascular death. New study reveals time-restricted eating could be deadly. 8-hour time-restricted eating may greatly increase the risk of cardiovascular death. Well, yikes, that's not good. You'll know I like to read studies, so I went off in search of the study to see what all the concern was about. The data was presented in a poster at a conference in March of 2024 from a study that looked at information from over 20,000 people from 2003 to 2019, and it found that people that restricted their eating to 8 hours or less in a 24-hour period had a 91% increased risk of cardiovascular disease death. Okay, at first, this looks like an impressive study. 20,000 people is a good sample size, and 16 years is a good long study. But there are a few red flags that have me questioning this study. First, it was an abstract presentation. It was a poster presented at a conference. The full study has not been released yet. I've looked for it. It's not out there, so we don't have all the information yet. Second, let's look at the number of people that were eating in the 8-hour or less window. It was 414, not 20,000, a much smaller group of people. Third, since this study has not been released yet, we can't see anything other than what was presented on the poster. We have no idea what these people were eating. We have no idea how many calories they were consuming in their window of eating. We have no idea how long they actually were practicing intermittent fasting. Fourth, this study was done on U.S. adults. We already know that the standard American diet puts us at increased risk of cardiovascular disease. It's our #1 killer in the U.S. Fifth, the same study found that intermittent fasting is better for cancer. So, do we need to choose between dying of cardiovascular disease or cancer? Sixth, this is an observational study where they asked participants to recall what they ate. This is not a great way to collect data. Most people can't recall what they ate accurately. Can you tell me everything you ate yesterday and at what time? Seventh, it makes sensational headlines. There have been countless articles written about really bad studies because it's sensational and people will read them. It's about selling the papers or magazines or getting the clicks. Eighth, it's not a peer-reviewed study, it's an abstract poster presented at a conference. Why is peer-reviewed important? Let's start with what that means. Peer review is a quality control process in academia that involves experts in a field evaluating the work of other experts in that field. The purpose of peer review is to ensure that research is high quality and suitable for publication. This study may get peer-reviewed, but we just don't know that yet. Ninth, there's a big difference between association and causation. All the articles said that there's an association between long-term intermittent fasting and increased cardiovascular death, not that long-term intermittent fasting caused the increased deaths. Here are two examples of association, not causation. There's a statistical association between the number of people who drown by falling into a pool and the number of films that Nicolas Cage appeared in a given year. Nicolas Cage movies are not causing the drownings. Here's another one. Jewish women have a higher risk of breast cancer while Mormons have a lower risk. However, one's religion is not the cause of breast cancer. There are other explanations. Causation means that the exposure produces the effect. Some examples of this are working in coal mines caused lung cancer. Smoking tobacco also causes lung cancer. The cause must be associated with the outcome. We simply don't know from this poster why the participants showed an increase in cardiovascular death. Could it be when they were eating in their 8-hour window that they were binge eating? Were they more likely to choose foods that were less healthy? Was the eating window too close to bedtime and caused their bodies not to be able to rest and repair at night? Did the degradation of the food supply in the U.S. from 2003 to 2019 affect the results? Did the participants not exercise as much because they were losing weight from the intermittent fasting? We simply don't know. What we do know is that every article stated that there were limitations to this study. One dietitian was quoted as saying, "This study doesn't actually show a causal connection between intermittent fasting and cardiovascular death, just a correlation. And the study is not constructed in a manner that would allow us to definitely say that there wasn't some third factor that actually caused those deaths. And a proper randomized trial would be needed to show there's an actual proven link between the time-restricted eating and cardiovascular death risk." And from the American Heart Association itself, the study's limitations included its reliance on self-reported dietary information, which may be affected by the participants' memory or recall and may not accurately assess the typical eating patterns. Factors that may also play a role in health outside of the daily duration of eating and cause of death were not included in the analysis. So what we have are preliminary findings, a poster, not peer-reviewed, and we don't even have the full study yet to read. I'm not saying that this poster isn't interesting and that there isn't some merit to it, but we just don't know. It makes great headlines, though, doesn't it? Let's look at some studies that are published and peer-reviewed about intermittent fasting and see what they show. In this one from 2021, they looked at time-restricted eating and resistance training over a 12-month period. They found significant improvements in inflammatory factors, insulin sensitivity, and lipid profiles, cholesterol levels. And they concluded that intermittent fasting with resistance training is feasible, safe, and effective in reducing inflammatory markers and risk factors related to cardiovascular and metabolic diseases. This review, published in June of this year, 2024, entitled "Intermittent Fasting Regulates Metabolic Homeostasis and Improves Cardiovascular Health," concluded that intermittent fasting has been shown to modulate lipid profile, enhance lipid metabolism, reduce the risk of cardiovascular diseases, and prevent inflammation. Intermittent fasting is emerging as a potential treatment strategy to counter obesity and enhance cardiometabolic health. And finally, this review and meta-analysis of randomized controlled trials on intermittent fasting, where they reviewed 44 articles, they say, this meta-analysis supports the role of intermittent fasting in improving the component composition of cardiometabolic risk factors, including weight, waist circumference, fat mass, BMI, blood pressure, total cholesterol, triglycerides, fasting insulin, and insulin resistance compared to the control group diet. That's pretty impressive. Will I continue with intermittent fasting? For now, I will. There's enough compelling peer-reviewed and published studies to support it. The reduction in inflammatory markers is of particular interest to me because MS is an inflammatory disease. I've been doing it for several years now, and I'm doing well. It's much more than intermittent fasting, though. It's the quality of the food that we eat and removing the foods and food-like products that are harmful to our health. It's exercising regularly as we're able. It's getting good sleep and practicing mindfulness. It's adding supplements as needed. And for me, it includes taking disease-modifying treatment to reduce the risk of my disease. I will continue to look for the publication of the study presented in the poster at the conference, and if anything exciting or noteworthy comes up, I'll let you know. Do you do intermittent fasting, or would you consider adding it to help manage your MS or chronic illness? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching. For more information on living well with MS or chronic illness, watch these videos next. Please don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and subscribe to my newsletter. Until next time, be well.